Hey everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Review 278. Today we're going to talk about Darkest. This is a somewhat new release from Queen Games. I believe they ran a Kickstarter for it at the end of last year, which was 2013, and it's recently come out, and I recently got a copy of it. Now, it is a cooperative survival horror board game, so it's a co-op. It's a zombie game, but there's a little bit more to it than just zombies. Basically, it's Resident Evil, the board game. You and a group of other survivors are going to go into a house, try to uncover the antidote or the cure for the zombie plague, and you're going to be fighting zombies and other different crazy creatures like zombie dogs and zombie security guards and zombie birds, and also some really wacky Mortimer family members, so doctors and this sort of fire starter type of girl. And it basically is two games in one, because you have your first game where you're kind of tromping around this house trying to get these little unlock codes to throw the lock switch for the lab, at which point then you've awoken either Lisa Mortimer or the doctor as the boss. You know, it's random every game, and then you're going to have to fight them. Now, I have to caveat this with the fact that I was actually instructed by the designer of the game to go and grab the second edition rules off of Board Game Geek. I don't know if it's second edition, but they're revised rules. And I can totally see why. The rules that come with the game are definitely missing in a few things. These rules are actually missing 2 or 3 small details that not huge. I mean, I could have played the game without just kind of ruling it myself. I mean, I'm making more of a deal of it than there is. But between the 2 rule books, you should be good to go. There was one thing about, the creatures that I didn't quite understand from reading this rule book, but I went to the other rule book and it was there, so no big deal. But I would say absolutely a must. If you watch this video and then you think this looks like a cool game, then I would say you have to get this rule book and download it and print it out for sure. So let's jump into how the game works, and I'll come back and tell you what I think. Okay, I've gone ahead and set up what a game board might look like. Now this represents here the house that you're going to be investigating. I've got here a player board for Miss Lucy Chang. And what players are trying to do, as I said, they're trying to get here from the entrance over to one of the corners. Now, as you can see, these tiles here are modular. They're going to be somewhat randomized. You can do a little bit of setup configuration beforehand, and the setup is really going to dictate in a lot of ways the difficulty and just sort of the little subtleties that will arise from exploring the house. You may have certain kind of confined corridors, long open spaces, maybe going to the middle of the house. You can make the survivors, as they move through their house, turn a lot of corners. Maybe there'll be zombies around different corners and things like that. But for the most part, you're going to have certain tiles with different backs, and these are going to have different little icons here that'll tell you where they're supposed to go. Now there's 3 of the corner tiles, and there's always going to be the 1 lab tile, and you go ahead and just throw the antidote in there. So that is what you're trying to get. You can see the antidote tile there, and then this is the lab. You can see there, this has sort of a steel door. Some of these other tiles here will have lock tokens that you will put on them, and there's going to be 2s and 3s, and this is telling you the number of code chips on the back. And what you're going to do as you set up this game board, you're going to take a couple of 3 lock tokens, and you can see here this has 3 tokens on the back. You're going to take one of those, actually I should say, and then 2 of the 2 lock tokens. You're going to look at them, and then you're going to note the different colored codes on there, shuffle them up, and then you're going to grab code tokens. And if you see here, we have code tokens here that match those. So the game can be set up a few different ways. You can kind of customize your difficulty. You can grab some code tokens and do these at random, or make sure that the tokens on locks that you grab get shuffled in here, or however you really want to do it. There's some difficulty there, set up here. But basically what you do is you take the lock tokens, you look and see there, okay, I've got these different colors here, and then you see this board here with the different colors, whatever you might have shown, and then this is going to be sort of like the secret code to open the lab door. And so maybe this is how it's set up here. And so you need to go through and discover basically all those different colors to unlock it. Now there is another side of the board You can see here this has 7 holes on it, and there is an 8-hole side, so you can make the code a little bit longer, a little bit harder to break. But you're going to do that at setup, and your goal there is throughout the game, I'll explain this a little bit more detail, is to place these code tokens on here. If you put one of these on there as an action, you can take all of the tokens up here that match these colors, or if you're in a pinch, you can just put one on there and just take one off. And you can even kind of brute force it. I'll explain that in a little bit more detail, but you don't want to do that because then you will advance the darkness. So again, basic just to the game, exploring through here, unlocking these rooms, which will give you codes, and then you can use to then unlock the lab. Now when you unlock the lab, you're going to basically switch into the second game mode where you've basically angered the boss and they're going to just try to destroy the entire house. Now one final piece of setup for the main board are going to be these security cameras here. You can see there's icons on some of these tiles that has the little camera icon. You're going to take and put these here, and you're going to orient them so that they're pointed a certain direction. And this is part of the difficulty that can change based on setup. Now you can see here, this camera here can see basically 3 rooms. They just see in a straight orthogonal line. Now you could turn it this way, but the rules say to position the camera so that it covers the most tiles. Luckily for us, we can get in the house. Nobody knows we're quite here yet. It's possible if there were a wall here or something, or there's a camera over here, that you could be in the house and you'd have a camera maybe pointed right at you. So that's kind of part of the setup. Players will have to negotiate with each other how they want to set it up, how difficult they need to make it to start the game. Because you really don't want these cameras here seeing you, because they may detect you and set off some traps. Now before I show you how a turn works, I'm just going to show you the player board and show you kind of what it's going to do for you. So here we've got Miss Lucy Chang. Now she is on what I like to call the 3 side. Now if you're playing with 4 or 5 characters in the game, you're going to play on this side. If you're playing with 2 or 3, you're going to flip this over. She's going to get more action points, and that's what that number is going to be. So let's go ahead and flip this over. So she's going to have 3 cubes in her little action box, and then this is her health here. So as she loses health, she's going to reduce the number of action tokens she has available to her until she's dead. And then this is also here your experience, and as you gain experience, you can then acquire 4 different skills, and this is going to change based on the different characters. So you can see here Nina has a slightly different health configuration, and she's got a whole different set of skills that she can learn. Now each character comes with a skill by default, and you can see what all these icons mean on this player aid. There's also some other icons on here, and I will say that this player aid is not complete. After I've played the game a few times now, some of the icons that are not shown on the player aid are fine. But if I put this game away and I go to play it again in 2 months, I'm going to forget what some of the icons are. New players are going to struggle with it, just like I did, I assume. So it would be nice if they would at least put online maybe some of the icons that aren't shown. What these icons show are the ones that are not commonly referred to in the game, but it'd be nice to have the ones that are more commonly referred to in the game available, so things were easier. So as, again, this player gains experience through doing different things, they can spend that experience, and here's the cost here, to basically unlock that skill. This allows them some better organization, a little easier code breaking, some different search bonuses and stuff like that. So as you enable those, you're going to be able to do better things. And here also you can see she starts with a piece of equipment. Each character starts with a different starting equipment. And you actually have sort of a left hand and a right hand. So as you gather equipment cards, you have a certain total based on the number of players or characters in the game. You can have a certain total of equipment. On the left hand side, you can put as much as you want up to the total maximum. On the right hand side, you can look at these hands here. You can only have up to 2 hands worth of equipment. So this is sort of like equipped and maybe not equipped or in your backpack. So some of these cards will have like 2 hands on them already. So like a machine gun will have 2 hands. So you can only have that card over here. As opposed to this, you get the armor and a bat. And again, these will do different things. The other thing to note here is that you see they have these little code chips on them. So not only do they have a special ability, like this one will give you 2 health, but it's got a pink code chip. So you can use these items to help you sort of jimmy the different locks and things and get them based on matching up with their colors. So let's take a look at how a turn is going to work. Well, here we have sort of our turn tracker. We call it the multi-tracker in this game. And this is going to tell us how the turn is going to work. Now after you've awakened the boss, you're actually going to flip this over, and the turn sequence is going to work completely different. So that's a pretty interesting sort of dual game that's going to happen. So we're going to put these on here. We're going to track different things. So you can see the first step we're going to do here, based on the 1, is resolve the event. So you start the game on here and move it up there. And so when you hit that, then you're going to trigger a zombie outbreak. On the next turn you'll hit this, and you maybe will spread the fire if a fire exists. And then on the third round, you're going to hit this thing, and then you're going to advance the darkness marker. Now the darkness marker will advance through some various other means. Survivor dies, if a tile gets blown up, so if you can see this will get blown up and destroyed, that will advance the darkness marker. Once the marker hits 4, fire will outbreak if 1 doesn't exist. If it hits 5 and the players have not made it into the lab, the players lose the game. So before you even get a chance to awaken the boss, you've got to discover all the codes on the code token board, unlock the lab, and get a survivor in there, or else the game will be over by that time. So after moving this and triggering the event, then survivors are going to regroup. So you can see there, since all of the survivors are here in the same room to start the game, they are all going to be in the same little grouping box. Now if they split up, let's say yellow and purple had gone somewhere, and then at the end of the round you're going to, as you take your actions, be here, then you're going to see who's in the same room as who, and then you're going to basically group these guys by who's in the same room, and then regroup them here. So when you go to take your actions, the first group, green, orange, and yellow, has to take all of their actions, and then we'll trigger, you can see here, an activation of creatures and fire spreading, and then the next group will do that, and then trigger that. If everybody's in the same room, everybody will get to act, and then we'll have one sort of reaction phase by the house. So this step 2 is just telling us to regroup, figure out where everybody is, and then put us into groups. Part 3 is going to be to roll for the cameras. Now let's say we had this situation on the board. These 2 survivors are in line of sight of the camera. What we're going to do is we're going to roll 2 dice, 1 for each of the survivors. And we're also going to roll a terror dice. So we rolled 2 of the survivor dice and a terror dice. We're going to roll that. And what you don't want is what I just rolled, and this is a failure. If you get a failure on any of these dice, you're going to trigger the trap that is shown on the terror die. Now these can be a few different things. This will cause a zombie outbreak, this will cause a fire, this will cause an activation by any groups that are on the board, any creatures or zombies. This will actually add a creature onto the board or heal a creature. After checking for any camera stuff, you're going to roll to place zombies. So it's theoretically possible, and I've seen this happen, that you trigger the zombies here, the camera triggers some zombies, and then every round you always trigger some zombies. So how do zombies get on the board, or for that matter creatures or fire? What you're going to do is when one of those things spawns is you're going to roll the d4 and the d6. So let's roll that there, see what we get. So the d6 is going to go across the top. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. So we've got 2 and then 4. So they would actually go here. So in this case we may take and put one of these zombie tokens, if that's what we were rolling for, and put that face down. Now that's going to stay face down until we're in line of sight of one of our group, which we are immediately. So we'd go ahead and flip that up. We'll look at the number, we'll discard this, and then we're going to put that many zombie tokens in the square there. So that's more than 2 obviously, but we'll go ahead and put those there, and now these folks can see, oh holy cow, there's a whole bunch of zombies there. And you do that the same for fire and for creatures when they come out. Finally, before the players get to do their actions, you're going to do number 5, which is check for zombification. Now, throughout the game, characters may get bites on them, and if you get 1 bite, you're going to go ahead and put 1 zombification marker on there. Once you get your second bite, that's going to be very bad. Now, the first time that you hit the zombification part of a round, when you have 2 of these, you're going to go ahead and put a gray marker on your rightmost skill. Now if you had actually learned that skill, you have now lost that skill. And then in subsequent rounds, once we get to zombification, this is going to move down and down and down. And then any skills that you've learned, you're going to lose, and you can never get those back once you've lost them. And then once you get to the end, your character is going to die. Again, you will advance the darkness track. You can bring that character back in, or you can get another character if you're not playing with all the characters and start over that way. So you're not out of the game, but things are pretty grim if one of your guys has died. So after checking all that stuff, then we're going to activate characters. And again, you're going to do that box by box. So if we zoom in there, right at the start of the game, everybody's in the same box there, so everybody will get to do their actions. Now you can take actions in any order you want. When you do an action, you spend an action point, you do that, and then so maybe Lucy goes, and then Nina will go, maybe Nina will do a couple actions, and then or Lucy could do all her actions. You just do that however you want. Some stuff will cost 2 action points. If it was everybody's done there, then you're going to have a reaction phase. So what are some of the actions you can do? Well, first thing you can do is move. You can just move one orthogonal tile. That's no big deal. Now if you're on a tile with zombies or creatures, you can't move until you wipe them out. And that again, it will cost you 1 action point. You can search. When you search, and this is interesting, a lot of the stuff in the game has to do with this, you're going to roll a die for each person on the tile there. So if we were searching here, we'd go ahead and roll 3 dice. And we'd also roll the terror die. And what you're doing is you're trying to find items out of the equipment deck. So let's go ahead and do a roll there. Okay, this is good. So in this case, what you're doing is looking for these bursts, and these are these successes here. And once you find successes, you're going to go ahead and mark that tile with a gray cube. That tile can never be searched again. Basically, that means you've found everything in the tile. And in this case, we're good to go because we got 2 successes. So you can take and grab 2 cards off of the deck, and at this point you can hand them to other people that are in your group at that point for free. Otherwise it's going to cost you an action to take or pass cards to somebody else. So when you get a success, you want to get a couple successes. Now, if you have rolled 2 matching symbols that are not successes, so in this case we'd have a success, but we have these 2 other symbols. If there's any a pair or more, then you're going to activate the terror die. And again, that's going to activate any of these dastardly things. So searching may cause people to be irritated with you and send more demonic forces your way. So you can move, you can search, you can pass or take equipment. You can try to unlock a door. When you enter a room, let's say these guys were all in here. When they enter that room, we're going to look at any doors that were face down. And now we know what colors we need to unlock them. And again, you're going to look at any equipment cards that you have to try to unlock them. So here we've got, let's see, a pink, a white, and a blue. Let's say for argument, Lucy had all of these. So she has the white and the pink, but she needs the red. Now, any players that are in the same active group, though, can help you. So again, active group, I mean by, who's ever in the box with you. Whoever started the turn in the same room as you can help you here. So it's kind of interesting about staying together. I'll get more of that in the review part, but you kind of want to stay grouped up for the most part. But if somebody else had a red token on their equipment, they could also spend an action point with me. So I could spend an action point for my turn here to unlock that, and then somebody else could spend an action point to contribute that, and then you take that and you keep that. Now what you're trying to do with these is get to these little terminals here, and these are on each of the corners except for the lab. And this is where you can spend an action to, 2 action points to basically turn that code in and put that on the board and then remove some of those code chips from the big lock. Now if you notice, there are some other special tokens on those corner tiles. You can see there's that little bullet up there, there's a fire extinguisher type thing, and then there's a little med kit type of thing here. If you're in this room here, you can spend 2 action points to activate any of the special functionality. So the thing to remember is all the corner tiles cost you 2 action points to do their thing. Now finally, the last thing you can do is do combat. And that is going to cost you an action point, and you're going to have various weapons and things on you. A couple things you can see here is you can have a range on a weapon, so obviously this is 0 if you got the bat, and this is the number of dice you're going to roll. You've also got here like handguns, that's got a range of 1. This here is the ammo, so when you start the game with this or find that, you're going to put 4 black cubes on there, and that's going to be the starting ammo. Otherwise, you can refill that up to 8 ammo. Every gun can be filled up to 8 ammo. In this one, you're going to roll that many dice. So this is a number of survivor dice, up to 4. Now you can get extra buffs and different skills. Remember I talked about the skills here. Some of those will add to your range, to your extra dice to roll and all that stuff. And in the case of zombies, basically 1 hit is going to kill 1 zombie in there. So the zombies are going to pile up like nothing you would believe, but it's actually relatively easy to destroy them. And again, everybody gets a lot of action points on the round, so you can take multiple shots. And also, if you have ammo, though, you got to remember to spend that. Now, finding creatures and bosses is a totally different story. So they each have their own little specific miniatures. So you can see here's a zombie dog, here is the bodyguard miniature, and then here is Miss Lisa Mortimer there. She's there. And then her dad, what's his name? Doc Mortimer. And so you're going to have these little tokens representing them, but you can see they have multiple hit point spots. Now the creatures here have fixed numbers, so they basically need to take 2 damage in each of these spots, and it's going to kind of slow them down and wound them, so that's pretty cool. But once you fill up all of these with hit markers, they're going to be dead. So let's say I do 2 shots at the dog here. I do that there. So now I've zeroed out one of his legs. So you can see the color code matches, so blue on blue. So now instead of 3 movement, he's only going to be at 2 movement. If I shot his other leg off, then he'd be at 1 movement. And then if I blew away this white one, you can apply these hits as you choose. This would deactivate his sort of special ability. Each of these has a special attack ability, and you really want to disable those because they're pretty nasty. And then if you do this, the orange ones, this will allow you to get rid of one of their bite icons, and the bites are going to be what gives you the infection. So you can cancel one bite icon rolled when they attack if anytime you remove one of these. So if they roll 2 bite icons in this case, then you still get one. So once you fill him up, or any of these other guys, you get zombie dog, undead bird, and the security guard. Once you fill them up, they'll be dead, but they may come out again. Bosses are a little bit different. When you trigger the boss, you're actually going to put some tokens on them based on the number of players that are in the game and where they're currently at on their action points. So they're kind of like auto-balanced, if you will, towards how you're kind of doing in the game, but it's basically the same idea. Once they come out, you're trying to kill them before they blow up the whole house. So after a particular grouping, again up there, has moved, then you do an activation of creatures and the fire. So let's say this particular group had finished moving. We're going to look and do an activation area, basically everything that's immediately around them, even diagonal. And so we're going to say, oh, we triggered this zombie party, so it's going to take up to 2 movements to move into them and then attack them. If they're already with them, they would of course attack them. Anything that is already in your tile is going to attack, and then anything else after that is going to move and attack. This is interesting. So these 3 guys, they're going to roll 3 of those red dice, so that attack is going to happen. Then the move and attack is going to happen. These guys are going to move in, and they're going to roll 5 because now they've swarmed in with you. And the creatures are just going to move based on their movement speed on their card. Any fire that's out, you're going to have this fire token here, and this is basically where the fire is currently at. You're going to roll for it to move. You roll the 1d4, which is here, and you can see here this 1, 2, 3, 4. That's going to tell you the direction the fire is going to move. So if it can move, let's say we rolled a 2, it would move over here, and it would obviously leave burn tokens wherever it's been. If for some reason it can't move, let's say it goes there, you're going to put another burn token on there. When you get your 3rd one, that's when you're going to flip the tile over. It's going to be destroyed. So you're going to activate the creatures and the fire. The creatures are going to roll these red dice here. These are going to do all kinds of bad stuff. This one will entrap a character. They'll have to put their little entrap token here on their character board, and that basically zeroes them out to 1 action cube that's available, which they can only use to make sort of a get free, so they're kind of cowering in the corner. Other people can contribute actions to help them roll to try to get free. What you're trying to do is roll a retreat. Oh, and I kind of mentioned some of these other icons here. These help during combat, like this will knock a guy back, and this will allow you to hit 1 distance further, which actually can be pretty important because you can actually outshoot the distance of your weapon, stuff like that. So these here, this will do damage. This will trigger the special ability of the creature or the zombies. Survivors can roll hit dice up to the number of people in there, and then each success you can choose which die do you apply to, to block out whatever die you want. So after that reaction phase, then you're going to move over to the next box. So if you've split up, you're going to kind of have multiple reaction phases, but you'll be able to split up and do different things and get to the house quicker. Now once the door is sprung, once you get all the code chips off, that's automatically unlocked. You just need 1 survivor in here. They're going to take and grab the antidote token, and they're going to take it with them. At which point, you're going to draw one of the bosses and then spawn them, and then they are going to become active and then move around and start just trying to destroy each of these corner rooms. So they're going to do their movement speed. If they run through any survivors, they're going to attack them and keep moving. So you've got to really chase them down. And then they're going to go through and basically, if they destroy all the corner buildings, or the person there who captured the antidote dies, then you're going to lose the game. Now there's also another track here on the back. So if you look here, there's another darkness track, there's another event track, and then you have a different way of spreading actions or spending actions. So if the darkness track hits 6, you also die. Now if you kill the boss before any of that stuff happens, you win. What's going to happen here is now players don't have groups. You can see that. Everybody can spend action points as they wish, and what you do is you put them on here. And so once there are 6 action points on here, you're going to move all the action points to the right, then you trigger the event step. So here the first round is free, the second and third round is going to move darkness, and then you go back to no event. And then you can have spreading of fire, zombification, and then you get an activation of creatures and stuff after that. And that's when the boss will move. You do another 6 cubes. Let's say we did that there with 6 cubes. These will move off. These will go to here, triggering another event step. And then these will come back to the player. So it's a different way of kind of managing your actions there. And you can, if you want, trigger that step early if it's advantageous to how things are shaping out on the board. But again, if you kill the boss before all that bad stuff happens, then you win the game. And that is pretty much how you play. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the overview. First, let's get the obvious thing out of the way, is the game doesn't work as it comes in the box. You definitely got to download those revised rules. And there's like 1 or 2 things that are missing. And I said that at the beginning. There's actually one thing that is missing, I think, in both rules. One of the characters has an icon on it that is not really explained. And it says he's got an icon, then he doesn't really have it on the board. It's a little different. I don't remember what it was. I just house ruled that, okay, you roll an extra defense dice with this character. And that seemed like what the icon meant. But that was the only thing that I found that I haven't figured out what the answer was for. And I didn't go on Board Game Geek to look it up either. But the other thing was I had 2 other like discrepancies that was like it was actually in the original rule book, and it looks like it was just kind of a printing typo with the revised rules. But between those, none of those were really deal breakers at all, not even close. So there is that. Now I recently played a game a couple of months ago by the same designer artist. Now the guy that designed the game also did, I think, all of the artwork for the game, and I really enjoy his art style, I gotta say. Very detailed, very kind of, there's a lot of sort of atmosphere to it and all that kind of stuff. I really enjoy that. I hope that came across to the camera. Now the game plays 2 to 5 players, and if you're playing with less than the full boat, you can play multiple characters. And it really kind of works that way because you have sort of an action pool of action points that you can sort of direct multiple people. It's not like you take turns, which I really like. It seems like I've been playing a lot of games recently that there's no turns. People just kind of do what they want to do. I like that because you can kind of like say, well, let's have him search and search again. Well, we want to kind of keep him back because he's got a gun, nice gun with some ammo that does like exploding bullets or something. And so you can say, okay, used up all your searches, now I'm going to search. And then so you can really kind of plan your turns out that way. But the game definitely does change when you go from, let's see, the 2 and 3 to the 4 and 5. Because if you're playing, let's say, if you're playing 2 players, never split up the group. Just move together the whole game. If you're playing 3 players, you still pretty much want to stay grouped up. Because depending on how you configure that board, you can sort of miss or get in little snags of crossways and things where you're like, oh crap, we triggered a camera, or now I'm in the range of this zombie trigger, or the zombies appeared and I didn't expect them to be there before we split up. But when you go into the 4 and 5 player range, you can split into groups of 2, or a group of 2 and a group of 3. So that way you can increase the search dice, because remember, when you search, you roll dice for everybody in the tile, and when you do defense die rolls, you roll dice for everybody in the tile. So being by yourself, I mean, if you did a search, you roll 1 die, you got like a 2 and 6 chance to have a success, 1 success, let alone. And then if you're rolling defense, you're just rolling for the 1 guy as opposed to a band of people that have grouped together. Now, however, if you don't split up, you're not going to be able to cover as many rooms because you need to go get those unlock chips and get those code colors to go unlock the lab. And so if you waste all your time slowly plodding through the house. You're not going to be able to search as many rooms, and you won't be able to get as many lock chips, and that darkness timer is going to run out on you, or threaten to run out on you. So you still want to kind of split up a little bit. So there's a nice tension there between that. It will seem, I know I talked about this in the walkthrough, that you're like, okay, this is ridiculous. There's like 5 rooms. This one has 10 zombies in it. This one has, 4, and like, we're totally surrounded. Now, 10 zombies is a lot, but I've seen it. But you may get like, oh my gosh, they're just surrounded by zombies, but they're pretty easy to kill. Once you get a couple of abilities, and as long as the dice don't hose you completely, you can kill them. But you get multiple shots at them. It's not like you get one roll and they're there. And you can get some nice weapons and stuff like that. You do want to make sure that you get a bearing on where that ammo room is, because if you run into ammo, which I've done like almost every time I played, but you want to get to the ammo room because you can stock up on ammo. Because if you switch on the end of the game, you can't search anymore. All those zombie tokens become active, and it's just like a madhouse. So you better be prepared when you're going to flip that over. But anyway, back to the zombies. It'll seem like you're going to get overwhelmed, but they're easy to take out. Those creatures can be pretty nasty, especially if they roll that little lightning bolt and do their special abilities. That's just going to darken your day. So yeah, it's a pretty straightforward game. It's cool to kind of manage, the sort of resource management. It's kind of like a Euro feel to it, but it's super, thematic, Ameritrashy, all that kind of cool stuff. I like it because of the 2 different modes. That's a really interesting dynamic of, okay, we're going through the house, we're unlocking items, and then all of a sudden, oh my god, the boss, and just charges through the house and is like wrecking havoc, and you've just got to chase him down and gun him down. You're like shooting all your ammo at them as they're trying to escape from you, and then you run smack into a wall of 10 zombies, and you're like, I can't get through. Okay, we're dead. Speaking of that, the game I have not won. It is it's tough. The luck will go against you for sure. I mean, it's I don't think that's a problem with this kind of game. I don't know. There was one time where we just got beat down really badly. We never made it to the unlocking the boss, and it was just like zombie after zombie and fire and just disgusting. It was just horrifying. We should have never went into the house. But then we had games where it was like right down to the wire. That boss was at 2 health, and like just by getting to the boss, I mean, that feels like an achievement to me. It's almost like, okay, if we got to the boss, we won. Okay, even if the boss didn't, we didn't kill it, you still feel like a sense of accomplishment getting through all the traps and stuff. So it's neat because it's only basically like one scenario, but it still gives you a lot of ways to configure. You can make the locks harder. You can really tinker with the house, but it doesn't feel like you're gaming the system. So that was one thing I was like, God, I can set up the house however I want. But it works because if you set up a wide open house, it's easier for zombies to get to you and easier for the boss to move through the whole house. So you can use the corridors against the boss to set up traps, but then that's also going to hurt you and stuff. So it's really just kind of, you can set it up however you want, and I really like that. You can tinker with, okay, we'll let the cameras control this. We can swing around it. It's going to cost us more movements when we want to move through here. But if we leave it wide open, the cameras are going to see more stuff. So there's a lot of give and take. I think it feels balanced how configurable the thing is. I like a lot of the nooks and crannies, so I'm just going to kind of wrap up with that. I like the cameras. That's a neat thing, cameras spying on you, triggering traps. I like the aspect of you flip a lock and you get the code tokens to unlock the master code. That feels very video game-ish to me, where you're going through the house, and very much like Resident Evil for that matter. You're going through the house, you get your combat weapons and your first aid and all that stuff. But you remember in Resident Evil or games like Zork, if you're really old like me, you get these weird item combinations, or like a Monkey Island type of game. And you piece these together like, how do I use the screwdriver with the plant, with the flashlight, and the duct tape, And you put all those together and you unlock a room and you get a secret and you move on to the next level and you kind of progress the story. This does a really cool job of abstracting that out with those code chips. And I just remembered, I forgot, you can actually kind of brute force when you do searching for code chips or try to go to the terminal, but you're going to move the darkness track along if you do that. So that's another cool little thing, is you maybe write it to things like, okay, there's no more locks around us, and we're screwed if we don't get this. So push the darkness track, trigger the fire, and then now we got to get to the guy. So there's cool little moments like that, how everything interacts. All right, so I think that's it. It's a really cool game, and so definitely take a look at it. I'm surprised it hasn't got more coverage. I think it's because that first rulebook is just like a pile, you know. But you got to get that second rulebook. I would definitely give it a shot. If you still got the game, you know, maybe download that revised rules and take another look at it. I had no trouble. Now, I just came at it just learning through the revised rules, you know, a couple of minor questions, but man, I was able to get through and play, you know, after, I don't know, a couple rounds. I was like, okay, this is moving along pretty good. So anyway, take a look at it. Dark, Darker, Darkest.